full story. What would you do if you saw your girlfriend was not truly happy in her marriage? I had just returned home after being deployed in Afghanistan. But when I walked through the arrival gates, there was no sign of my girlfriend Abigail. I called for a cab and headed straight to my apartment, my heart filled with anticipation of finally being reunited with her, after so many months apart. But as I stepped inside, I immediately heard her crying from the bathroom. She opened the door, and in that moment I saw her standing still, holding a positive pregnancy test. Her face was streaked with tears, and my heart sank in a way I'd never experienced before. I was stunned, unable to form a single word. She kept begging me to say something, but it was as if my entire world had just shifted beneath me. The first question that escaped my mouth was how far along she was. She answered almost in a whisper, 1 month. Those words hit me like a punch to the stomach. A month ago, I had been in the middle of a deadly conflict fighting for my life. I'd seen my brothers in arms fall beside me, and in those moments, the only thing that kept me going was the thought of Abigail. I imagined her face when I finally made it home, the voice of encouragement in my head, telling me to keep pushing forward. I fought to survive for her. But now she was here pregnant by another man, and the realization tore through me like nothing I had ever known. My mind flashed to the image of her in bed with another man. My blood boiled, and the rage, betrayal, and heartbreak hit me all at once. I demanded to know who the father was. When she whispered a name I didn't recognize, something snapped inside me. I felt as though I couldn't control myself. How could the woman I loved, who once spoke about building a life together, be pregnant with someone else's child? My vision blurred with anger as I yelled at her, my voice echoing through the apartment. She tried to explain, but I didn't want to hear it. I stormed out of the bathroom, slammed the door so hard it cracked down the middle. The sound of Abigail screaming in horror barely registered. In a fit of rage, I overturned the coffee table, sending glass shards everywhere. I punched a hole in the TV, and it crashed to the floor. My hands were torn up from the impact, but I didn't care. I felt out of control, and the anger that had built up inside me was threatening to consume me. Realizing I couldn't stay in that state, I left the apartment, trying to get away from the wreckage I had made. The next day, I returned expecting to find Abigail there. But she was gone. Instead, there was a note on top of the coffee table. She wrote that she was leaving and feared for her life. While I understood her fear, I knew I would never hurt her. If this was what she wanted, I would respect her decision. Abigail had been everything to me. She was my rock when I lost my family in a tragic car accident. She helped me piece my life back together when the weight of the world seemed unbearable. We had been together since we were 18, planning our futures, building a life out of nothing. Her parents had disowned her when they found out she was gay, and I had stepped in to support her when she had nowhere to go. We had struggled together, and I had joined the military to provide for us. But now it felt as though everything we had built had crumbled because she had chosen someone else. The pain of her betrayal weighed heavily on me as I walked through the apartment, picking up the broken pieces of our life. I went into the bathroom trying to open the door, but the knob broke off in my hand. Staring at myself in the mirror, my bloodshot eyes, and the exhaustion written all over my face, I realized I had lost more than just Abigail. I had lost myself. I left the apartment and went to a liquor store, trying to drown the overwhelming pain and frustration. Days turned into weeks, and I could feel myself spiraling out of control. The PTSD that I had fought so hard to manage began to take hold, and I buried myself in alcohol. Abigail had been my lifeline, and now she was gone. I was lost. It was my best friend Mark who found me one night drunk and wallowing in my self-pity at a bar. Mark and I had served together in the military, and he had always been there for me. Without saying a word, he helped me to my feet and took me to his place. He didn't lecture me, didn't criticize. He just stayed with me, helping me through the withdrawal and the pain. It wasn't easy, but with Mark's support, I started to pull myself together. The cravings didn't go away, and the pain never fully subsided, but I found a glimmer of hope in the routine of getting better. Months went by, and I slowly started to feel like myself again. One Saturday, I went to the mall hoping to clear my head. As I passed by a baby clothing store, I spotted a familiar figure. At first, I thought I was imagining things, but then I saw her Abigail. She was standing outside holding hands with a man I didn't recognize. It hit me like a punch to the gut. The vibrant, beautiful woman I had once loved was gone. Her hair was limp, her eyes hollow, and her clothes hung off her frame. She looked like she had aged years in the months since I'd seen her. The man beside her, the father of her child, was tall and aggressive. His grip on her hand was firm, almost possessive. He didn't even look at her, barely acknowledged her distress as they moved through the crowd. I stood frozen for a moment, my heart breaking. I could see it in Abigail's eyes. She wasn't happy. She was trapped just as I had been. I wanted to approach her, but she quickly looked away. Her hand tightening around the man's, a silent plea in her gaze. I watched them disappear into the crowd, my heart aching with the realization that she was still suffering. I had to help her. That night after a run, I saw a text from her. She apologized for everything, saying how sorry she was for betraying me. She wished she hadn't had this child with him, and she was trapped in a nightmare. I agreed to meet with her. A few days later, we sat in a quiet cafe. As soon as she saw me, she broke down in tears. She told me how the man had been treating her and how she thought she was doing the right thing by not forcing me to be the father of someone else's child. But now she was stuck. I promised her that I would help, but I couldn't go back to being with her. I loved her, but I couldn't undo the past. I spent hours digging through social media, piecing together information about the man she was with, Darren. He wasn't hard to find. His habits, his routines, everything was easy to trace. I waited for the right moment to make my move. I spent hours studying Darren's routine. I followed him to the gym, watching from a safe distance, waiting for my chance. The adrenaline coursed through my veins as I sat in the car observing him like I had once done on deployment. It was the same feeling, the focus, the heightened awareness. I wasn't going to let him hurt Abigail anymore. Around 8:00 p.m., he left his house and headed to the gym, just like he did every Tuesday. I followed him, staying far enough behind to remain unnoticed. The gym was a 24-hour spot, so I wasn't concerned about crowds, but I still stayed in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment. Time seemed to crawl as I watched him, his every movement like a slow-motion replay in my mind. When Darren finally finished his workout, he emerged sweat-soaked and carrying his gym bag. He didn't see me as he walked to his car, but I could feel my pulse quicken. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. But then, just as I was about to make my move, another man approached him. They greeted each other, and I realized I couldn't go through with it now. The risk was too high. I stayed in my car watching the scene unfold. Darren and the other man talked for a while, and I knew it would be pointless to confront him while they were together. As soon as they parted ways, I followed Darren to a bar. I parked across the street and waited, knowing that alcohol would make him an easier target. Hours passed, the bar's neon lights flickering in the cold night air. I could feel the tension in my body, waiting for him to come out, every minute stretching longer than the last. Finally, just before closing time, Darren staggered out, visibly drunk. His movements were erratic, and I knew this was my moment. He was vulnerable, aggressive from the alcohol, and I wasn't going to waste it. I stepped out of my car and followed him into the alley behind the bar. My heart was pounding in my chest as I crept closer. He didn't notice me coming. I grabbed him from behind and pulled him into the shadows, where he struggled in my grip. But I had the advantage. I slammed him against the brick wall, my anger spilling out of me in waves. I didn't hold back. Years of frustration, pain, and betrayal came pouring out as I took my revenge. When it was over, I left him there, a broken mess on the ground. I didn't care about the consequences. All that mattered was that he would never hurt Abigail again. I knew he wouldn't be able to lay a hand on her after that night. As I walked away from the alley, a strange sense of satisfaction washed over me. It wasn't the kind of protection I had once dreamed of offering her, but it was protection nonetheless. I had done what needed to be done, and for the first time in months, I felt like I had regained control of something in my life. I never heard from Abigail again after that night, and I didn't reach out to her either. I had done all I could. It was over, and I had to accept that. In the days and weeks that followed, I continued to focus on my recovery. Mark was there every step of the way, and I began to rebuild my life. The nightmares didn't stop, and the pain of losing Abigail lingered, but I learned how to manage it. I wasn't the same person I'd been before, but I was surviving. I had found new things to live for and new goals to strive toward. One day, as I was walking through the park, I saw a couple playing with their young child. They were laughing carefree, and for a moment, it reminded me of what I had once hoped for. A family of my own. I felt a pang of sadness in my chest, but also a flicker of hope. Maybe one day I'd find that kind of happiness again. But for now, I was content with knowing that I had made it through. I had survived everything life had thrown at me. I'd been to hell and back, but I was still standing. And that was enough. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.